Great look there at 2020. And as John mentioned in that clip, it was a mean feat to get it even off the ground last year. And now we are super pleased and grateful to be back here in 2021. So bringing the focus back to today, let's have a look at today's schedule and what we have coming up. So these are our two groups. On the left-hand side of the screen, we have Group A, and then on the right-hand side, we have Group B. As you can see in Group A, we only have 3 drivers today as we had a late retirement, but that's just going to make this even more intense for those guys. The way this is going to work is the 2 fastest from each group will then qualify for a place in the wildcard finals, and then the eventual winner will go on to the EMEA finals. Before we get into the actual race, we are going to have a qualifier. So why don't we head over now to our race as our drivers are getting prepared for this qualification. So we did have a chat to our drivers earlier on today, and as groups go, Group A is pretty interesting, right?
Yeah, for sure. You've got obviously these 2 buddies now. Damien and Bruce. Damien and Bruce. Those are the 2. The 2 furthest away for you on your screen just there. And they're good buddies. They've been racing now for 10 years together, and they've got a pretty good rivalry going on. Damien was saying that they've got a bit of a pact for the last corner.
Yeah.
if it comes push to shove, they are going to send it. So maybe we'll see that. Maybe things will flare up a bit earlier on in the race, but that you can best believe it, they're going to be going at it for this race. Because, I mean, with only 2 spots available, it's entirely likely one of them isn't going to be making it, but I'm sure they'll be cheering each other on no matter what. Yeah,
we did speak to them, and I did ask the question to, I believe it was Damien, and said, is it a friendly rivalry? There was a little bit of a chuckle there that suggested that it is friendly now, but we'll see on the last corner. And then obviously our final driver in this group is Gary Farmer as well, who actually qualified for these finals second fastest. And when we told him that, he was quite surprised.
He didn't expect that at all, but he's been seriously quick, and I'd expect him to be quick here as well. So we'll have to wait and see what comes from that. But as I say, with him there might be potential for one of these friends to sort of get knocked out of this stage.
I think it's going to be a situation for Gary where Gary gets to concentrate on just himself, whereas maybe Damien and Bruce are always going to have in the back of their head, seeing where the other is. And I think it's interesting with Gary. Also, he mentioned that he's only really put some focus in since January this year.
Yeah, a very recent starter.
And this was, in terms of the qualifiers to get here, that was the first time he's ever driven in any sort of competition, even remotely like this. And this is the first time he's going to get to experience a finals as well. So a debutante and maybe the rookie, but as we've known in many times before in motorsport, that sometimes the rookies can surprise us.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, a bit of a mistake made here or there by some of the more tenured veterans of the scene maybe could give you a little bit of a chance to sneak in. You never know. That's probably be what we might be looking for more in that final when we have some of the other drivers stepping up as well. But yeah, I think this one's going to be very interesting. Nonetheless, even with just the 3 drivers, I think we've got some good action potentially coming our way. And an interesting thing as well about Gary is obviously he's competed in Paralympic events as well. So this is like this is actually a pretty big achievement in some regards. In just already what he's done, he's sort of come here with a bit of a just I'll see what happens kind of attitude. It felt like when we were talking to him. He obviously didn't know he sort of qualified into second. And for him, I think if he can come away, if he can get into that final, have a bit more experience there as well, I think that'll be great in terms of just sort of helping kickstart maybe if he wants to pursue sim racing a bit more.
And I think with the first track today being Brands Hatch was the actual track that they've had experience with and had a bit of time with. Obviously, a very historic British track. A lot of the corners named after some very famous drivers. We were chuckling when we were setting up for this because we were laughing about you can always tell which British track now is having more F1 races, as it's who are the F1 races that the Ben's named after, or the straight. Obviously, later on we're going to Silverstone with the Hamilton straight.
Yeah,
but
very recently named that one.
Very recently named, but of course with Brands Hatch we have the Stirling's Bend, which is named after the very legendary Stirling Moss. So there's a bit of history, and the thing for me when I was watching some of the setup and the pre-races was that moment where I got immediately transferred back to my childhood of watching things like F1 on TV and playing like older games, of just seeing that Brands Hatch. There's something about it, the energy that it brings when you see that stand in the background coming up to the straight. It's a great feeling.
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever been to the track, it's a great place to visit. Even if you're maybe not as much of a motorsports fan, if you sort of tag along with someone who is, there's a lot to be learned there, and a lot of great racing. That first corner, it's such a challenge. That first corner, there's so much that can go wrong there. You're driving over the crest into the corner, and there's a big gravel trap on the outside. No second chance with a runoff area. It's just straight onto the gravel for a lot of places on this track actually. So for these drivers, there's not going to be much room for error. At least not on Brands Hatch. Maybe Silverstone might have a little bit more room for manoeuvring in a couple places.
As someone that spent the majority of the time in the gravel trap, I can attest to just how difficult that first corner is. But what would be your strategy with this setup now? Obviously, again, does it put more pressure on having less in your group, or does it ease the pressure knowing that 2 out of 3 go through?
Well, you don't want to be that one, do you?
Exactly. You never want to be the one. So again, obviously they were preparing and anticipating that we were going to have a 4-man group. So we'll maybe see just how that impacts. I must admit that all the drivers this morning when we were chatting to them were very laid back, chilled out, and very much looking forward to this.
I think they've had a bit of a chance to customise their colours on the cars as well, from what I've seen. So
definitely,
I think you've got a real good sort of. Well, it'll be interesting to see how they've each customised it, because as we can see on our screen, one is a very brown McLaren.
Yeah, I would say burnt orange.
Burnt
maybe.
orange, is that the official term?
That is the official term. And this is a great shot of a bit of a preview of the track and going. And a bit of a feel through for us here. It's this sweeping bend now that comes up, and really the priority here is that fast exit out onto the straight and go as fast as you possibly can, put your foot down on it.
Yeah, you don't want to be going in deep and having to sort of brake too far into the corner, and then that compromise, obviously, as you say, the run all the way down to this very challenging first corner. You can see he goes over the brow. You've got no space for runoff at the edge there. Nicely done actually there in terms of just hitting that curb on the outside. Not too shabby, I will say. Keeping things clean and tidy early on here. This is the qualifying session, I believe, as well. Yeah, I think we're already into that one.
So this will be Gary Farmer in the burnt orange car, currently trying to put down some good times. Like I said, ranked second in the qualifiers to get here. So that's interesting, because we do have someone in Group B that we will heavily suggest is probably going to be the favourite for the weekend. Chris McDade,
yes,
who has got a lot of previous experience within this particular tournament in itself. So for Gary to be a bit of a hobbyist, to come in and then qualify relatively close as well behind Chris, I think that's a good indication to see that he might be pretty quick around these qualifying times.
Get a nice little shot of him there as well, in the hot seat, in the driver's seat in the top corner. So I'm waiting to see what sort of times we actually get from this, because I think when I looked at those qualifying times when they did obviously at the sort of the PC Worlds, we were looking at sort of the top times being just under 130s. Yes. 128, I think, was the
top time, and Gary got a 129.
Yeah, I think it was about half a second between the two of them. So, honestly, if Gary's had a bit of work in since then, maybe he starts to edge a little bit closer. Who knows? It could be an interesting one, but obviously that's all. We're all looking into the future here.
Definitely, and in the present, he seems to be calm, collected as he is going through this, and I don't know about you, but I'm very much, I'm not, I don't enjoy going first. I don't enjoy laying the marker down because I feel like it's a bit of pressure, but he seems to be handling it pretty well so far. Best lap time there, we've got a 1:29, so he's in
1:29.5, yeah.
So he's in around about this similar sort of ballpark that he was to get here. A little bit wide on that one there.
That means he's pushing, though. That means he's pushing. So he's not going to be holding back at this point. Obviously, with only the 3 cars here, grid position, not going to be a massive factor. Like, it's not going to be in the sense of, oh, if you don't qualify well, it's really gone off there. Really pushing it now. But if you have a bad qualifying session and you're not able to sort of put in the time you maybe hoped for, maybe you think you can achieve, you've only got a couple cars ahead of you. So you're going to have that sort of aggressive start as you maybe could grab some positions early on. It's not like you're starting in 20th.
Yeah.
It's not like you've got a whole pack of cars ahead of you and things are going to get messy. No, it's just a few cars, so it really is going to be wheel-to-wheel fighting, I hope.
Yeah, and that is the interesting dynamic here. We are used to seeing a slightly fuller grid, but there is space. Saw a bit of a kick out there, a bit of a skid, and I know again in our Group B we do have a drifting expert, maybe a bit of a preview of some drifting there. Obviously the qualifying time is 15 minutes to lay down your best speed that you possibly can.
Now we do also see the other 2 cars on the track, Bruce and Damien, going to be having another go of it as well.
The quote unquote friendly rivals. It's going to be
friendly outside of the track, not so friendly maybe on it. We'll have to wait and see.
Definitely so. And again, obviously, we mentioned that they've got 10 years experience and maybe with some different games as well. I mean, that's going to be interesting. How transferable is driving skills from one game to another?
It depends on the realism of the actual game, because you have a broad sort of spectrum of what's available on the market. Except of course a Competizione, the game they're playing on right now, that's towards the higher end. That's one of these games where you really can sort of, I don't want to say it's almost as close as it comes to mimicking a real car. Obviously, you for a lot of sort of from what most people play on, you're not going to have like the sort of feeling in the car. You're not going to be able to feel what the car's doing, that side of the things. That's all. It all has to come through the steering wheel as feedback and through the audio. So you're limited in that sense. But in terms of how the car's going to behave, it's probably as close as you can get to. Like it is based on physics. that's the thing. It is based on physics. There may be obviously a few nuances which are maybe a little bit different, but when you transfer that to another game that's similar, you can have success even in that game. Obviously, the way you drive, knowing when to brake, for example, they all transfer over.
Just a little look at Damien there, as you can see that shake of the head, took that corner extremely wide. I did appreciate that he's brought the driving gloves, and that is when you know someone is serious. We're back on board again with Gary, as we saw someone coming off ahead of him. I think that was Bruce, taking a brief stop off in the gravel trap there. So the 2 rivals not had an opportunity to lay down a track, but it's looking good for Gary here. He's going to be pushing it close.
He's too far off now. That's going to be nowhere near his best there. A couple of seconds off. Looks like he's really. Oof. And go with the cones.
Yeah, I was going to say, taking some of the track with him there. Still out in front though with that 1:29.5.
Just wondering with Gary here. Obviously, we've seen him having a few mistakes now. He started off pretty strong. He got that 1:29.5 in really, really early on, but now maybe the tyre's failing away from him a little bit. I'm not sure how much he's been pushing them. Maybe a little bit too warm. Maybe they've overheated a little bit, and he's just suffering with that grip. It's something you could do to maybe alleviate that. Just take a slow lap. And then just have a full crack at it with some cooler tires and just give it your all. You don't want to keep pounding these tires when they're already just at their limit.
And especially because he set down a benchmark.
Yeah.
He's already got a time in the bank, so maybe he doesn't
Yeah.
need to be pushing it as hard every single lap.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what the friends will bring out once they get a lap on the board. They had a couple of little shakes and wobbles on their opening chance of things, so no official time set just yet for either of them, but hopefully we can see them getting on the board and get a representative lap time through, but time is starting to fade a little bit now.
Yeah, we're back on board again, still with Gary as he's pushing up close. Coming in with a 129.451, which is the best at the minute, so a good effort again.
Yeah.
Coming around that qualifying time to get here, so he seems to be on par for sure in the early goings here. So we are now back on board with Damien, I believe. Yeah, qualified over in Reading, and we're having a little bit of a chat about that. Chuckle there. Used to live there myself, so we've got a bit of experience. As he's pushing a good time here, 28.740, and just like that, there you go. There's that 10 years of experience for you.
Yeah, I mean, he's coming with a corker there. That's going to be a decent chunk actually ahead of what Gary was able to put down. 7 tenths, just over 7 tenths for him. But I'm sure Gary will see that and have his sights set.
Yeah, and here is that friendly rival, Bruce. For the first time, we are taking a look on board with himself. Extra points there, definitely for matching the racing gloves with the t-shirt. Appreciating that. Good stuff. He's going pretty well early on with this lap here as well, and he will be very aware that both of his other competitors have laid down a time.
Yeah, not too long left in the session now. Only, I think, four or so minutes now for them to get that last time or get a time through. Can have a couple chances in that one, in that period of time. But yeah, Bruce definitely needs to get one down. I'm hoping this is going to be a good lap for him because it looks like it's been relatively clean so far. Heading into that final corner, just needs to get this one cleanly through. Nice start line there, actually. Gets himself a good exit in towards the start-finish straight, and it's going to be a little bit off the way. Minute 32, just about. A little bit off. Maybe needs to have another crack at that one.
Yeah, definitely so, but it's good that he has logged a time as commentators curse as he finds himself in the gravel trap there, maybe pushing a little bit too hard to try and keep pace with the other two. So we're definitely going to be keeping an eye on Bruce here, who is currently at the back of the grid as we jump back on board once again with Gary. One of the key things that I heard all drivers say when we were talking through their expectations for the weekend was consistency.
Yeah.
Now, how important is it to get that consistency going, especially in the early qualifying rounds?
Well, it's no good if you're a second quicker than everyone else, but every other lap you've been in the gravel, you need to be, even if you're a second away from maybe what you think you could theoretically get in terms of lap time, you need to be able to do that in the race. If you can't do that in the race, it's almost meaningless because you'll just drop down the order, and with only a few cars, it's not going to be any chance for you to really make up in terms of maybe misfortune for other drivers in battles. You've not got much in that regard. So, yeah, you need to be putting in times that are, just times that are, I'm trying to think of the correct word for this one, but I mean, I want to say consistent.
Yeah,
but I think that's the entire theme of the conversation. So
yeah, but I think that is a good point. I mean, the one thing that we have seen from Gary during this is that he has been consistently putting in times there or thereabouts. Whereas maybe again we're back on board here with Damien and Bruce. Maybe they're pushing a little bit too hard to try and get that faster time. As we can see, this wasn't the best lap in the world for Damien.
No, I think that's because he went back to the garage for a little bit before he came back out. So. He'll start another flying lap here and he'll try and best his current best.
Yeah, he is currently top of the grid, which is a good spot to be in. Here we've got, coming up to now, about a minute left in the qualifying, so it's going to be a feeling of, especially for Bruce, who's at the back of the pack there, now or never to log a good time.
Yeah, and one other thing that was interesting when we were chatting to Bruce and Damien, was I think we were talking to Bruce and he said, we asked him just plainly, who's better of the two of you?
Yes.
And I thought the answer for that one was actually really interesting because he sort of said it. He said, honestly, myself, but he said, since they've now got identical rigs at their own places, Damien's really there now, and we can see it here. Damien is putting in a strong effort. Bruce has a little bit of work to do if he wants to try and get on par with Damien here.
Yeah, there was a lot of honesty in that statement, and it
is the best policy, as they say.
Yeah, that is. And it is interesting to hear that they both now have exactly the same rig at home, exactly the same setup. So there is a good indication as we are coming to the end now.
Yeah, just have to finish your last lap time here. Time's done. We'll see what Damien's going to put through here. If he's going to be able to improve coming on down to the line. Oh, he is flying. Look at that. That is a corker. Did he cut the track?
Yeah. That is a 1:26.9.
That's the fastest lap so far.
That is hands down the fastest lap so far, and we're back on board with Bruce, who a little bit of a shrug of the shoulders there, maybe resigning to the fact that he will be starting at the back of the pack.
It is an improvement though, at least.
Again, coming back to that consistency as he clocks the time here. And there we have it. So our final standings are Damien top of the pack. We've got Gary in second, and then Bruce right at the back. Well, there we go. We can see Damien looking very chilled out there, I must admit.
Yeah, I mean, I would if I was in his position right now.
Again, it's that I think is not only has he laid a time down now in the qualifying for his group, but he's given an indication of what Group B you're going to have to do to try and contend with in the finals as well. I don't want to be. I feel like this is quite a bold statement.
Okay, here we go.
But I feel like Gary might be the dark horse for this tournament. Because he's come in and said, I'm only a casual player. This is the first time I've been in a tournament thing. He's qualified second. He looks pretty consistent and pretty solid all the way through as we take a look back now. Did take a little bit of the track with him.
Yeah.
But this was one of, I believe, was one of his fastest times. So he's coming in around about that 1:29. And another look here at Damien setting that.
This is the initial time.
The initial time, which was fast enough to put him at the top, but then he went and bettered it.
Yeah.
As we look at Bruce as well.
Yeah, Bruce struggled a little bit in that first session. He'll have some work to do, but you never know. Obviously, the race is a completely different animal. So hopefully we can see Bruce getting involved. I'm hoping that we're going to have a bit of action at least at the start as things get underway. But just a lot of sideways action from these drivers. Gary having a bit of an off there.
That's something you don't want to see in the highlight
reel. No. and obviously you mentioned as well earlier. We talked to Ethan, a bit of a drift star himself, who's going to be in that second group. But he'd be loving that. He'll be loving that. He'll be loving some of that. He'd be like, oh, that's exactly what I wanted to see. Drifting these GT cars.
So to expect him to be going sideways more than going forward. So we've already got our drivers. They're preparing now for the first race of the day, and again, it's going to be a look here as we take a look at Bruce there. And
he's going for the classic one ear on, one ear off by the looks of things.
That's it, to make sure he's not too immersed in it, but maybe looking a little bit frustrated. I saw when he laid that last track time down, he did a bit of a shrug of the shoulders.
It feels like he can probably do better then. I'd hope at least. I mean, he's got to try and get on par with Damien, as much as it sounds like a challenge right now.
It certainly does, and obviously he's going to have Gary in between him as well. So just a reminder as well what we are racing for today. It is the spot in the grand finals of the EMEA that are going to be over in January. It's a big stage, as we saw in our clips earlier on.
Yeah, some real good production being put into it.
Absolutely fantastic, it really was. And we mentioned in the 2020 season, it's a difficult season to navigate, especially with the pandemic and getting through it. And they did such an excellent job now. Yeah. And now it changes the dynamics slightly this year, where we are here in person with the other drivers and having maybe a little bit more pressure. I mean, preference,
studio lights,
Preference for yourself? Would you be more comfortable in your own setup at home, or would you feel more comfortable in a racing environment?
Well, I've never never been in a sort of racing environment like these guys in a studio, rig all laid out for you or anything. But honestly, you'll feel comfortable at home. This will be a little bit alien, but you still are going to be able to do. It's still going to have that familiarity of, okay, I know what I can do here. This is still a racing wheel. These are still pedals. This is still me racing the car around the track. You've got that going for you. As we actually have a little bit of a look there, just to confirm the qualifying results. Damien is at the top, Gary just behind, and then Bruce comes in third. But yeah, I mean, from my perspective, obviously with the commentary side of things, I much prefer to be in the studio.
Yeah.
But that's for an entirely different reason. You've got, for the drivers, there's a lot more pressure. And for some people, that makes them a little nervous, maybe a few mistakes. Maybe that's what Bruce is feeling. Not going to jump to any conclusions with that one, but for some people also it elevates them. They're able to sort of without that comfort, you have the sort of more mental aggression to sort of do as well as you can. There's more at stake, it feels like, as it looks like we're about to get going with the race.
Excellent stuff. We are just about ready to get up to the start of this race. Our first race of the day. This is our Group A. The top two out of this group will be qualifying for our finals later on at Silverstone. And here we go.
Don't know where the third driver is right now, but right now we have a couple already into things. Damien is going to be leading the way as they head down through that first corner. It's pretty orderly for now. No real jumping and jostling for position, as I think they're just aware that this is a 25-minute race. So they've got a lot of time to try and make the move, but already Damien just starting to eke out a little bit of a gap. I think the third driver started from the pit lane there, maybe.
So already has a distance to cover
Yeah.
and try and play catch up a little bit. So it's going to be now down to a situation where is Damien going to be able to control this race? It's already getting some early pressure.
Slipstream. Go on, give it a go up the inside. This is not a place you want to overtake, though.
We are extremely early on in this race,
Yeah.
and we've already got a bit of a close quarters action going on.
Yeah, but still Damien leading the way. Maybe sometimes you have those drivers that want a little bit of that sort of look up the inside in a place like that, just to maybe unnerve the driver in front. Sometimes it's just poking your nose up, even if you're not committing for a full overtake. Sometimes just getting that sort of poke through, making sure the driver in front knows you're there. That can be all you need to really make a driver a little bit uncomfortable, force an error maybe. That's often the easiest way to pass someone. Make the error. Don't overtake them.
As we see now on board with Bruce, he is keeping up that pressure on his friend here and making sure that he is keeping relatively close to him.
That'll just be the aim for now. Keep close. Don't go into any sort of dogfighting yet, because with Gary a little bit further back here, he's like, as we can see, about 3.5 seconds back. If you get into a dogfight early on, that's going to give Gary a bit of a freebie in terms of being able to close the gap early. Because when you're like side by side having jostles and having a bit of